Hey, I'm Sam,
I'm Landon.
I'm Jada.
and we're Toy Ahoy with Toy Design. And we made a board game, and we're going to go over why and how we did that.
So first of all, we should probably talk about the engineering design process. In general, the process is ask, imagine, plan, create, improve, and then it goes back to ask.
And so,
asking, yeah.
what kind of things do we ask? Well, we asked what are the problems and what are the constraints? And we had quite a few for our projects. So, one of the biggest requirements that we had is that it had to be educational and it had to be for young kids around elementary school age.
And it also had to be entertaining. Like a kid doesn't want to just play a toy one time and then quit.
In some of our research, it says that the reason why gamification or making learning material into games is so effective is because it grabs kids' attention and it retains it. So if your game doesn't do that, it has no purpose. You may as well just lecture.
And we picked geography because we found that an alarming number of students are not proficient in geography, which is not good considering the fact that the world is becoming increasingly globalized with all of widespread communication and everything. We also tried to incorporate a system of building things into our game because we thought that building things is fun. Children like to build things. Children also like cars, so I 3D printed some cars and we incorporated that into the design, which was I think it was a good move, but we can talk to someone else about that.
We thought that having a physical element where the kids were actually building something, interacting with an object, it would help to get their attention a bit more than simply looking at a board the entire time. They would have something to mess around with. And so the next stage is plan, and this is where we spent a lot of our time. Most of our time in the semester was spent planning. We had to plan and brainstorm basically the whole board game.
And we probably spent too much time planning. We needed to be more decisive about that. But anyway, when we were planning, we spent too much time on that phase, so that when it came to the other phases of the design process, which are create and improve, we didn't have enough time to execute those properly. For instance, when I was 3D printing the cars, I realized that 3D printing actually takes a while. The prints fail very often and very frustratingly. And not only that, but when I 3D printed the cars, the models had a bit of a mistake to them in that the axles would break off and they were too flimsy, so we couldn't put wheels on the cars. So what I had to do is I had to cut wire and then glue it onto the bottom of the cars. That was one of the problems that I encountered, but we encountered plenty of others.
And I headed the board game creation. And one of the biggest problems I found was my plan called for printing out the entire board game as one sheet of paper that would be 1 foot tall by 2 foot long. And printing that is not easy. And that all leads into 5, improvement. Because it took so long to plan and to create, we had to submit the board game at the last possible moment. We turned it in almost the last hour that it was due on that Wednesday. And so by the time we got it back around Friday, we only had a weekend before FEDD day. And that small amount of time was when what we had to improve. And some of the criticisms we got to improve were things like the wording was too complicated in both the rules and some of the cards. And what that would entail is redoing all of the cards, which we had almost 100 of. So a lot of the improvements we couldn't fully do in that amount of time.
I think that the board turned out really well, though. Like maybe we should show that.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it came out really nice. So
one of the things we definitely had to do in the end was to think about what level of education these kids are on. What words do they understand easily? And being in college, it's not the easiest thing. We've been through middle and high school, and in that time, you learn a lot of big words.
So as for advice that we would give to freshmen, definitely from me, don't spend too much time planning. Spend a good amount of time planning, but don't be indecisive. You need to.
So one of the biggest pieces of advice I would think of would be don't underestimate how much time a project like this can take, and make sure that you meet enough and that those meetings are actually meaningful.
together. And I think specifically for a toy design, I think you should know your demographic. So you know exactly who you're trying to pitch this idea to.
So in the end, we didn't get a prize at FED. We also didn't get last place, which is good. So we think we did a good job, but we hope that with this advice that you guys can do even better.
And so what we would do if we had to do it over, it goes along with our advice. It's things like make sure we have meaningful meetings, maybe even meet more frequently if we are struggling with that, and also ration out your time. We didn't do so much planning in the long game. We weren't thinking of, well, the first few weeks we're going to be doing this, the next few weeks, and so on, and moved all the way down to FED. We were sort of improvising everything,
Like
and so by the end, we were time crunched, even though we were working the entire semester. So yeah, we're Toy Ahoy. I'm Sam.
I'm Landon.
Jada.
All right.